Hello, everybody. Welcome to Rock, Paper, Hand Grenades. I'm Matt Connarton, and holding the key is the Honorable Gary S. Hopper. Instead of a hand grenade, you have a key.
I have the key.
Now, is that a key to something explosive?
In a sense.
Because you don't have the hand grenade, so
Right.
Does that unlock a missile silo or
Well, I
something?
used to be able to keep my hand grenades here, but they said I wasn't supposed to anymore, so I keep forgetting to bring my hand grenades. Because I have to bring it in the morning before I go to my radiation and then before I go to Concord, so it's kind of I'm not in the habit of doing it, so I've forgotten in the last few weeks.
Right.
But this, Matt, hi, Matt.
Hello.
We have Mr. Representative John Hikel.
Yes, the most honorable John Hikel is with us.
The most honorable John Hikel that I even know of.
Yes.
I would say.
Yes, of all the John Heikels, he is the most honorable.
I am the most honorable of the John Heikels.
Yes.
That I'm aware of.
Yes.
I can't speak to all the John Heikels.
Right.
But anyway, when I don't know how many years ago, 20-something, 30 years ago, they went to a system at the State House where they used to, if they roll called, they would go through the list of state representatives and say if it was a roll call vote on something, which is a vote where we actually keep track of who voted what way.
Yeah.
Okay, that's the one that really counts. And so the clerk of the House would go and say Representative John Hikel, and John Hikel would say yay or nay, then Hopper, and it's yay or nay, and they would go down the list and check it off.
Yeah.
Which, I actually was like my first term, I think. It was on an abortion bill, I believe, or right to life or something like that. And I asked for a roll call, but the machines weren't working. And so Karen Wadsworth, the clerk, said, "Do you really want a roll call?" And I said, "Yes."
Yeah.
I felt bad about it, but yes, I do. And so she had to go through the roll call, and it took... it's 400, almost 400 people that she's got to go through and check off.
Yeah.
And it took 20-something minutes.
Oh.
But it
okay.
was
That's not so bad.
well, it is because right nowadays we have how many roll calls do we do a day? Probably 20.
Yeah, a lot.
Really?
Yeah,
10,
yeah,
20?
Yeah. A lot of them are roll call.
Oh,
a lot
wow.
of
especially in
roll call.
election year because they want
evidence.
They want evidence, right?
Right.
Huh, okay.
So
Wow.
if they did 20 would 3. You're talking hours worth of roll calling.
Oh, yeah.
Just hours, just counting names. And so they didn't do very many roll calls. And then about 20 or 30 years ago, they went to an electronic system.
Yeah.
And this is the key for that electronic system. You turn the key on in the morning, and then you'd press a red or green button.
Yeah.
Well, this past Christmas, they switched over to, instead of just an electrical type thing, an actual digital thing. So we still have the buttons, but there's no key to turn it on anymore.
Oh, okay.
So we have the key. This is the key for my seat. See, it says 138.
Yeah.
That's section 1, seat number 38.
Ah. Okay.
So that's the key because they can't use them anymore.
Huh.
And the cool part is it says drop in any mailbox, a guaranteed postage paid. So I'm thinking of just dropping in the mailbox. I'll go get it next week when it comes back, and then do it again. But
Well, that's
that was a
cool.
long cotton picking explanation. Was that worth it?
Oh, very much so, I think.
Was it
It's
really?
history. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
I
it's
thought
history.
the first roll call was like a red lantern and a green lantern, and they'd light that one, or they'd light that one, and that was back like in 1784 when the whole thing started.
Huh.
I think they had a lantern.
Oh.
Yeah.
You're kidding.
Yeah, they took it off their horse and they brought it in. It's like, yes, you go, green lantern. No, you go, no lantern.
That's probably where the whole Green Lantern
That's where the movie came from.
movie
Yeah,
came from.
yeah.
Right.
A lot
gotta be-
Started
of
right here.
comic book heroes come from that time.
Absolutely.
All right, Hikel.
And today.
I usually do this, but I'm going to let you do it because you can actually read. We had child and family law. One of the first things we did today was get rid of the crime of adultery,
Right.
which I said on Norm's show. I'm not sure how many people should have recused themselves on that.
Yeah. Well, they may have had a conflict.
Yeah, a
you
little
know.
bit,
Right, you know.
If you're getting rid of a crime that you were actually guilty of,
Right. But never convicted.
never convicted.
Right. That was the problem. Nobody's ever been. I don't think anyone's ever been convicted of it.
I think only the military does that, right? The military
military
does,
is
don't
very strict about their ethics.
they? Yeah.
And yes, they
US
will.
Military Code of Justice.
Especially if it's a general that is not in accord with the President of the United States. They might find, say, evidence of adulterous
adulteress.
relationship so
Right.
that they can get rid of somebody that's, say, non-compliant.
Yes.
But I'm just guessing.
Yeah,
I'm just guessing. What else do we do, John? If you go, you
Gee
sure.
whiz, what do we do? Let's see, commerce and on children and family law. I mean, that was
Just go through the
that
list.
was a good
See
one.
if there's.
I mean, it's still a sin, though. Adultery is still a sin.
Yes, yes.
It's just not. It's just.
We're not gonna. It's not a criminal.
It's not a criminal,
penalty.
right?
Yeah,
Can't go to jail, but you can go to,
Yeah.
you know,
Yes.
right? So,
This is not a get out of hell free.
Right,
It's a
this
get out
is-
of jail free.
right. That's right. So,
Right, because you can't really. I mean, legislation in terms of governing going to hell, that you can't.
No.
No.
I
don't
think
have
a
the
lot of
authority.
people would like to think that if we make something legal, that it makes it non-sinful. But
Right,
it's not
right.
the
And
case.
that's kind
That's
of like
not
a-
how it works.
yeah, that's that's one of the.
I think
Ten
God
Commandments,
doesn't
right?
really care what we do or do not make legal. He's still going to have his standards.
He's got his 10 Commandments. And if you
Right.
break them, you know,
Yeah.
right?
Anyway, so we did on
anyway,
Child and Family. We did that one. Well, anything else on Child and Family?
Let me see. Marital family act, custody.
My favorite bill died on the. Didn't even debate it this year. That's the one to get rid of no-fault divorce for couples with minor children. Warren Groen actually introduced it this year. I didn't even bother.
Really? Yeah.
Yeah, I just didn't have the heart to just present the bill and then lose so badly.
How many times have you presented that bill now?
Crap. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 times. I
Really?
think. Yeah.
Yeah.
5 or 6 times.
Oh, how about this one? This was real interesting. Relative to perjury by a law
police
enforcement
yeah.
officer. That was majority of the committee was ought to pass.
It failed, right? On the floor?
Yes. 11-7 out of committee. The bill creates specific penalties for police officers convicted of perjury or false swearing. The Constitution, Part 1, Article 18. All penalties ought to be proportioned to the nature of the offense. Police officers guilty of perjury are a threat to our court system, as the infamous Laurie list of officers liable due to
I'm not sure I
untruthfulness.
voted for that. I'll tell you why. Because on judiciary, I've actually been dealing with the Laurie list from different angles since
What is the Laurie list?
that's what I'm about to deform you of.
Oh, good. Oh, I don't want to
Okay.
be deformed, but okay.
There was a case, I think it was in Nashua. That's like Nashua, but it's Nashua.
Sure, sure.
And I don't remember exactly the specifics, but basically the person that got arrested claimed that the police officer was rough with him, and the guy got convicted, and then he took it to the state Supreme Court because there was evidence that same cop had been roughed up somebody before.
Okay.
So the Supreme Court said that's, what is it called, exculpatory evidence?
Exculpatory evidence.
It's exculpatory evidence, and that the prosecution had an obligation to let the defense attorney know that it was there,
Okay.
because that would have helped his case. So the guy was acquitted, and it was after the officer's name was Laurie, I believe,
Oh, okay.
and it was after that it was required that they kind of keep tabs on this stuff. So that currently what happened, and the reason I know about it early is because the judges were being abusive with it.
But this isn't the Laurie
Wait,
list.
okay,
I don't want to
let-
interrupt you,
Yeah,
but I kind of do.
I know. I want to
because
get.
I need to.
You can. But
Okay.
wait till I get up to the point where we're talking about the bill, though. So early on, I introduced legislation to study the Laurie thing because judges were not only releasing to the defense attorneys the possible infractions a law officer might have committed. Mm-hmm. Okay, these are all stuff these are things that are on the officer's personnel file.
Okay.
Okay, but they were like releasing where the guy lived. So you could be talking about this guy who was a gangbanger, heroin dealer, and you're releasing where the guy lives, and stuff like that to the defense, which means that the criminal, theoretical, alleged criminal, now has access to know where to.
Okay.
Okay, so it went way over the top.
Right, right.
So they went back on that and they fixed that, But basically, the Lori list is a list of police officers that the AG's office has a list of them. The county attorneys have a list of officers in their district that are on the Lori list. But being on the Lori list does not mean you committed perjury. It means that you did, like, had allegations of, roughing somebody up, or you screwed up some paperwork sometime, or there's things that are on your personnel file that don't disqualify you from being a police officer like perjury would, but could possibly be relevant in a particular case.
As being a truthful witness.
Okay.
Right.
Right, but that could be, But
this bill wasn't about Lori.
Right.
This bill was about
perjury.
Police officers who have been convicted by a jury of their peers through the court system of perjury.
Right.
Okay.
That's what this bill was addressing.
And I don't think I voted for it because I think that if an officer was convicted of perjury, they would lose their ability to be a police officer immediately. You can't be a perjurer and be an officer at the same time. I know that minor infractions that police officers have done have made them difficult for certain police stations to even use them in court cases.
I wish there was maybe there was a law enforcement officer watching the show. He could call in and let us know this.
Yeah.
I don't know that either, Gary. What I was told is I would assume that if they've been convicted of perjury, they are no longer by standards and training or their standards that they go by. I would assume that would disqualify them from being a police officer.
Yes, I believe it
Not
does.
to mention that is a felony,
Right.
and felons can't have guns.
Right.
So somehow in there, I think it should be already, fixed in there, but I don't know. Why was there legislation necessary to address it?
Yeah.
I think what the issue isn't that police that have committed perjury or are convicted of perjury.
And there's very, very few of them, by the way. This is not a problem.
Sure.
This was a I don't even know one. So,
Yeah.
But obviously it came up for some reason.
But my understanding of it is that if somebody a police officer was convicted of perjury, they would be off the force because they no longer are. They have no purpose on the force. Even if you exclude the legality of them even having a firearm anymore, the fact is they could never use them in court ever again.
Correct.
They're done.
Right.
Their career is over if they commit perjury. I think the greater issue is the Attorney General's office covering up for them and never prosecuting them for perjury.
Right.
So that it never gets on the Lori list and never gets, not that would be on the Lori list, but it never gets to that point because the Attorney General's office seems to be pretty competent at covering up whatever they can.
They do. I mean, they definitely.
And that's, to me, where the issue is, not the list itself.
Right, they do. Well, I guess they do. They've been accused of it. Surprisingly, the Attorney General has an oath of office, which he's the only one, I think, in the Attorney General's office that does have the oath.
Right.
To the AG has an oath of office to the people of the state. So I don't know how they get away with.
Did they ever
anything up.
convict that cop that was having young women undressed in front of him and stuff like that? What did they do with him?
In exchange
I know he lost
for the tickets or something, getting out of the tickets.
Yeah.
I think the finding was that I don't think he got in trouble for that.
Wow. Really?
I think he ended up resigning.
He may have resigned, but I don't.
He should have been in huge trouble for that.
Yeah.
Well, you would think so, but something. From what I read, I don't think he was in. I don't think he was paying any kind of punitive.
He should have. You put somebody in that kind of position, they are, by definition, held to a higher standard and need to be. But they're not. And
we think so.
Because that's last term I had the bill to have the Attorney General's become elected.
Yeah.
And that went nowhere, as a lot of these things don't. But that was kind of why, because I'm sure I've told you about it, but quite a few years ago we had a police chief in Ware hold up a stack of records when we had a petitioned warrant article in Ware.
I remember you talking about this. Yeah.
Okay, and the petitioned warrant article was to go on the ballot, and its intent was to have the police chief's position become an elected one. During the deliberative session, the chief of police held up a stack of papers, and Ed Nail was from Coalition New Hampshire Taxpayers was with me, and he's seen what that type of records paper looks like, and it's not 8.5 by 11. It's like 8.5 by 14 or something. He says those are records. Okay, so he held up a stack of records and said that if you had seen the records of the people that signed this petition, they have records as long as my arm, inferring that he had done a background check on everybody that had signed that petition, which is a violation of your constitutional rights and your right to privacy, your right to petition the government, and it's an abuse of power.
Oh, absolutely.
And it's abuse of his power. It's against the federal law, and they didn't do anything. The Attorney General's office did absolutely nothing.
That's incredible.
And 3 people from town complained about it. Evidence was presented to them, and they just still did absolutely nothing.
That's amazing.
And that's why I don't have a lot of regard for the AG's office, because they do not police their own.
Who's the Attorney General in the state?
Who's the Attorney General now? What do we got? Not that it matters.
I
They don't
haven't
do
met him.
anything.
Delaney was the last one. He's working for McLean, I think, now. Well, I think.
But it's an appointed position.
It's
The governor.
governor and council appoint the.
Governor recommends and the council
Okay.
votes.
So basically, they're only accountable to the governor and the governor. I mean, if you look at all the attorney generals we've had, they're all gone on to higher office. It's like a stepping stone. You go here, you be quiet, you do what you're told, and you can go to higher office. Like
Right.
We had David Souter, Kelly Ayotte, and the list goes on and on.
Yeah.
And it's a stepping stone. It's a political appointment that's.
Huh.
And it shouldn't be. It
Right.
should be somebody in there who's defending the rights of the people and prosecuting people that step out of line and police officers that step out of line.
Right.
But they do not do it. They still, it's been since that guy that was dealing heroin up in, or they allegedly dealing heroin in Ware, he was unarmed and killed, and they still haven't come down with a verdict.
Really?
Yeah, that was what was that, like August or something
Yeah,
like that?
August or so,
The
yeah.
guy was
Yeah.
basically shot, and he had no weapons,
Yeah.
No weapons, no drugs.
nothing.
No kidding.
Yeah, no kidding. Right.
Yeah, and the AG's office still hasn't done anything.
Wow.
Well, they've investigated it.
They have
and they're still-
investigated, yeah.
They're still investigating.
This
it.
was in August?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Jeez.
I think the worst thing the only thing I think they've done that I know of that's almost even credible is with that police chief or is it chief in Greenfield, or where was it? East Coast, the coast where the cops got shot. The guy was
Oh, that was Greenfield, I think,
Greenland.
wasn't it? Oh,
Greenland,
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh boy. Yeah.
And that was like a cop who had a vendetta against somebody who went back after him, and he got killed. But I think they did come down with a decision.
He went
that
to the
didn't-
house, right? He went
Yeah, went to the
Was
house.
it
Drug
the chief
dealers.
there?
Yeah, the chief. Yeah.
Yeah,
What a
it
sad,
was horrible. It was horrible. But
horrific.
and the guy was just about to retire.
What a
Yeah.
shame.
But
Oh,
the guy they went after, I guess, was on roids, and he was angry. And,
killed his girlfriend too. There,
He
I
did?
guess it was. Yeah, he killed his girlfriend, then he killed himself.
yeah,
But he killed the police officer.
it was horrible.
The chief of police. Or
But
whatever.
that was the only time.
was
But
a
that
very
when they
sad
investigated that case, I think they came down with a decision about how some of the mistakes that were made and stuff. But
Right.
that's the only critical thing I've heard out of them in 10, 15 years that I've been keeping track.
Right.
Wow.
Well, police officers have great power given to them. You know, they're human. You know, I guess.
I think that's part of the problem, though.
We can all, you know, it can happen. Anything can happen to anybody. We hold them in a higher regard because of the power that they have and the authority that they've been given. But I think the vast majority are great guys. You know, good people, professional, and all that stuff that we are hoping for.
But I think that the fact that based on history from what the Attorney General's office has done and things like that, if they know that they're untouchable, that just leads to more abuse.
Sure, and the system protects itself.
If they know that there's basically nothing they can do, short of mass murder on camera, and it hits the Channel 9 News with video. If that, then
Don't give them any ideas, Gary.
yeah, pretty much. But
Because I hear they watch you.
sorry,
Another one.
move on.
Everybody watches Gary.
Yes,
Everybody
yes.
And that's right.
Yes.
You can go online and they'll give you the video.
And the Malaysians, of course, because we're huge in Malaysia.
Yeah, we are
Because the people are very small.
short. Yes,
I hadn't done that joke in a while.
There you go.
last week.
Let me see. Prohibiting residency restrictions for registered sex offenders and offenders.
That
against
was
children.
really weird.
That was a really weird one.
It was a really weird one.
Yeah.
We had the police chiefs, I believe, and a whole bunch of groups that want. What does the bill do again? What was it?
Well, basically, it allows
Sex offenders.
sex offenders to. The arguments were out of this world. Some of the arguments were, well, the guy's a sex offender, and he was one of the reps that was speaking was talking about a 19-year-old dating a 16-year-old.
Yeah.
That isn't what this bill was talking about, and there are 3 tiers of sex offenders. That isn't what this one was addressing, but it groups all of them into one.
Okay.
And it passed, which was really kind of crazy.
It was kind of crazy
Because he's, the difference between a 19-year-old or a 21-year-old dating a 16-year-old is much different than a pedophile.
Oh, of course, yeah.
Right?
Absolutely.
Molesting a 3-year-old or an 8-year-old. I mean,
Right.
there's no comparison.
Right.
But this bill groups it together.
What does the
And
bill do?
how in the heck can anybody defend that?
I believe the bill fundamentally made it so that towns can't put in ordinances to zone pedophiles away from schools and things like that.
Away from anything in particular.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because one of the arguments was, well, the pedophile grew up in this house next to a school. He goes to prison, he does his time, he can't get a job, he can't do anything, so he has to come back home and live with his parents for a while. So he's living he's living in the same home as a daycare center. And it's like, what are these? I can't even imagine what the argument was to even allow this to happen.
Right. Yeah.
Pedophiles should be nowhere near children.
Exactly.
Schools, they should not be living in the same house.
Yeah.
But when you vote, sometimes being in the house, for the folks that have never been up there, sometimes you can spend a whole day voting absolutely right, but losing and going, geez, was it me? I mean, am I looking at the world different?
Yeah.
Or should be? I don't agree with it. I don't think so.
Yeah.
Because we've got a majority in there that is just out of control.
Yeah, but look at the committee. What was the committee report on?
And the committee report, the scarier part of the whole thing was the committee report was 18-1. And that's a committee of
18-1 in favor of this?
Yes.
yeah.
Really?
I don't know what they heard in committee, but
And so did this pass?
Yes.
yeah.
Wow.
See, the problem is
Because you have a majority that's going to pass it no matter what.
Wow.
And we can't do anything to protect it.
Yeah.
But if 18-1 means that the vast majority of Republicans on the committee thought it was a good idea too.
Right.
Okay, so it wasn't
That's
just
strange.
you can't just say it was all the Democrats' fault, because that should have been a split decision if it was an obvious
was
it was that
partisan.
obvious.
Yeah.
But and that's the other problem is on the House floor we don't get into the we don't hear the testimony.
Right.
So this part of you going, if it's 18-1,
You hear a couple of
Are we
people
missing
speak.
something?
Hear somebody
What
give
am
a
I
parliamentary. Yeah. What did I miss?
Yeah.
That would make this even plausible to be
Right.
something that we'd even be talking about.
Right. That is
and they said the
incredible.
the police were in favor of it.
Really?
What are the advocacy groups for the sexually abused? They were in favor of it.
Really?
So we missed something.
Yeah. it
The
sounds like
only
it.
argument that made any
But
sense
reading
at all.
the bill tells you that we didn't miss anything.
Yeah. Wow. That's strange.
But
Yeah.
the only argument at all that made any sense at all, but it didn't, not enough to sway me, was that if you zone them out of some place like Manchester, they'll hide under the bridge and prey upon children because they have no place to live.
Mm-hmm.
But to me, that's still not a decent argument.
Or they'll move back to their parents' house, which is upstairs from the daycare center.
Right.
I mean, I just, when you talk like that, I mean, what are you thinking?
Right.
Yeah.
Who are you? What are you thinking?
Yeah.
And why are we living in the same state?
Right.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
So I have a.
Wow.
When it comes to that type of pedophile, put him away, lock him up. Dismember a few things, and I don't have any that. I have no tolerance for that.
I agree with most of that, John. I agree with most of what you said.
Well, that's good. I mean, hey, what,
they used to have a song like that, right? Dismember, dismember.
I would. That sounds familiar. Yes.
Yeah. Well, whatever it is, that's not curable, and that guy doesn't belong to be out. Period. Let alone.
That I agree.
Like you say, there is that huge distinction. I still think we need to do something about that. I don't think somebody who's 18 that fell in love with a 15-year-old should be filing as a
for the rest of their life.
Yeah, that's insane.
Right, and that is a problem, obviously. Yes. And
we tried to repeal that about 10 years ago, but nobody wanted to go on record as being soft on crime.
It's illegal.
Right,
it's wrong. It's morally wrong. All that stuff. But I would.
I don't know how morally wrong it is.
Well, I would venture to guess that there are some of those that get married. I mean, I would guess.
They
I would
actually
venture
do.
to guess that some of those get married and they have a full life together.
Sure.
But their partner is registering as a sex offender every month, and has to tell.
Right.
I mean, because
tell law enforcement where he is.
School,
which is kind of weird.
All
right?
through school, didn't they all tell us that we, boys are like, about 2 or 3 years behind the girls?
Oh, yeah.
So if you're 18, she's 15. Emotionally, theoretically, you're almost on the same page.
It is all relative. Different people mature at different rates.
So I don't. Yeah. So someday we got to do something about that.
We do have to fix that.
I agree.
But there are those 3 tiers, and there are 3 tiers of sex offenders. But this pedophilia stuff, combining it into this other stuff that is, not a 17 and 19, but I guess that's probably the same, right? I mean, but 16 with consent or whatever. There's consensual stuff too.
Right.
But I just don't understand it. When you listen to these arguments and you go, okay, I've heard this for about a half hour and it still doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's what we have to deal with. So hopefully.
Yeah.
I went in the speaker's office. I signed up. We're debating before I left. We're debating whether or not the town clerk should be elected or appointed. And I don't know which legislator got up and started talking ad infinitum and talking and talking and talking. It was a foregone conclusion which way the vote was going to go.
Right.
It wasn't even going to be close. I knew it wasn't going to be close. And so I went up to the speaker's office and I says, the reason we're not allowed to have handguns on the House floor is because after about 20 minutes of that, the probability that we might commit suicide is really high.
Mass suicide.
Just make it stop, please.
Like some Jim Jones kind of stuff. Why don't they just leave it up to the towns? Why is that even? I don't understand why that would even come up.
Because we're political subdivisions, and this is a home rule state, so everything comes from Concord. Everything that happens in the town comes from Concord.
Okay.
So they can't leave it.
You stayed long enough. They didn't vote for that in, right? That died.
Which one?
The clerk.
That died.
Yeah, good.
Yeah. But so there's a uniformity there where something like that is the same in every town then?
Yeah, the towns can be more restrictive, but they can't.
Okay.
But whatever happens in Concord happens in all the towns.
Gotcha. Okay.
And then each town can be more restrictive on those issues if they want to be.
Okay.
But they can't be less restrictive.
Interesting. Okay. I didn't know that.
Let me see. Providing the judicial office can be confirmed. Providing the judges and the attorney general shall be elected. That was another one that came up. CICR 12.
That was not a great bill.
That was not a great bill.
I'll tell you why. Because that was in committee. I'm the one of the. If you notice, it's like 16-2 or something.
Yeah, and you were the 2.
I was one of the two. But it was only because, in principle, I like the idea, but in practical sense, it just made no sense at all. Because that would mean you would have. I mean, if you if they narrowed it down to say that the judges on the Supreme Court were elected and the Attorney General, that would have been a lot more logical. But the idea that and it would actually make them amazingly accountable.
They do that in some states. It works fine.
But having every judge elected, when you have 4 in Goffstown that are, and is it a county election because they're county judges? Is it this election? It just would have been, I thought, completely impractical. However, like I said, I voted in committee, and obviously on the House floor, I voted for the bill, but I thought it was completely impractical. But I think it would have been very practical if it was to make the Supreme Court justices elected positions. then they would be less ingrained in part of the system and more. If they have to get reelected every 8 years or something like that.
How about
6 years.
but they're not the ones dealing with the people on the regular basis.
Right.
The family courts are
exactly
the district courts, the superior courts.
I know, but
because now superior courts and Supreme Court are constitutional courts, and
but the thing is,
inferior courts are not.
Right now, the problem is the Supreme Court and the courts protect each other. If a judge is out of hand, the Supreme Court just kind of, they might send him a memo, calm down or something, but nothing's done. But if the Supreme Court those people had to get elected to be in there, they're going to be a lot more accountable and responsive to judges that are out of control, I would think.
I think anybody elected has to be more.
Or maybe make the Judicial Conduct Committee an elected position.
Yeah, that's a whole nother issue.
It is.
I don't know if that's our jurisdiction to do anything with the Judicial Conduct Committee.
I know I had one last term to make See, the problem is we have a lot of judges. Not a lot. It's the same thing with a police officer. All you need is a couple of judges that are really not doing a very good job, and that would be okay if they were held to the fire for it.
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
But that's not what happens. They get out of control, and the judicial system basically protects them, just like the Attorney General's office protects the police. And it's exactly the same thing as the Catholic Church. Instead of when they had the priests that were pedophiles, instead of holding them up, over a pit of snapping alligators and saying, "We're really sorry this happened to you." Oh shoot, they slipped.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And holding their own accountable and holding them up and say, "We do not accept this. This is not an example of what the priesthood is."
Right.
And these people, have to deal with their God at some point, but they are out of the priesthood, and we're helping the police to prosecute them.
Right.
That's what should have been done, and people would still have a lot more respect for the Catholic Church.
Right. Instead, they move them around.
Instead, they protect their own.
Yep.
And it's the same thing with the police departments. You have one bad cop who gives the rest of the cops in that area a bad name, and they protect them, and it just ruins the entire image of the police force.
Absolutely.
And it's the same thing with judges. They protect themselves. It's politicians do that. If you go up to Washington, D.C., and there's some politicians are getting away with absolute murder, but they protect each other.
Exactly.
And that's, I don't know what kind of psychosis that is, that people can't see past their own self-interest or selfishness to...
Yeah, it's sociopathic, really.
It's insane.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't do anybody... If I knew John was on the take and I didn't say something, okay, eventually he's going to get caught. And, well, so you knew John? Yeah. So were you on the take too?
Right.
It would be a logical assumption.
Right.
And it's the same thing in so many places where people just protect each other, and in doing so, impugn their reputation of everything that they stand for.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm better now. What do you got next, John?
Well, I'm looking for something that would be.
A lot of it's really not interesting. We sit there for a lot of hours. I was at closing.
Prohibiting impeded driving and use of certain electronic devices while driving.
I wasn't. What was that one?
That was HB 1360.
It's already illegal to text while driving, right?
Yeah, but this is something different.
This was everything.
Everything?
This was don't touch a phone. Don't call, don't GPS, nothing. The bill greatly defines as criminally reckless such common activities as programming a GPS, calling home while stuck in traffic, or stopped at a light, and completely forbids drivers under 18 from communicating, including by hands-free devices. This is extremely unwarranted attack on our freedoms to travel and go about our business unhindered by the state. People may...
How did that go? What was the vote on that?
I don't remember what the vote was.
What is it recommend? What was the committee recommendation?
13-3.
To what? Ought to pass?
Ought to pass. Recommend
Really?
HRA was opposed. You ought to pass with the amendment.
So it probably passed.
Yeah, it probably passed. It probably passed.
Wow.
You get
So
doing these
That's,
things.
that's obnoxious.
You
Well,
get
no,
doing these
well,
things in
that
rapid
means-
fire.
That means no hand signals.
Right?
You know, when you flip somebody off.
What
I
about what about turning on your radio?
What about turning on? What about your breathalyzer? What about that breathalyzer, breath lock, or whatever they call that for?
Right? Yeah, you
Yeah.
can't.
What about that? What if you can't?
Yes,
You can't turn it off. I don't know what you can do with those things,
Yeah.
but you can't touch it while you're driving. Might not be able to turn it on. I don't know.
Wow.
No electronic devices.
No.
It's too much. It's just too much.
So I'm not sure. You know what? I'll check that. We get rapid fire on these things, and you're going, okay, it makes sense now. Okay, yes, no, but sometimes you go back and reflect at the end of the night and go,
Yeah.
let me go back and see what I did. I can remember most of it, but sometimes in all the talking going on, you get lost in the speeches.
Oh,
and
I'm
go,
sure. Yeah. I'm sure.
Let's move this thing along.
Yeah.
So that can happen.
Lost or bored? I don't know. I think it's bored more than lost. Lost sounds like you might be interested. Some of it's not really very interesting.
That was our house session. I mean, there's a bunch in here that just probably nobody would care about. Proprietary taxation, business enterprise tax.
Did you stay long enough for that stuff in the back?
Yeah, I stayed for the whole thing.
Oh, well, it sped up because when I was leaving, they took like 45 minutes on the clerk thing. I said, okay, I can't stick around this long.
Yeah, no, the speaker said, "Hey, Gary's gone. Let's go.
Let's
pick
pick up the pace.
Now we can have a good time."
Oh, okay.
So
So you're ruining it for everyone, Gary.
I guess.
Yeah.
I
That's what
should
it
leave at
sounds
10
like.
o'clock in the morning, then everybody they'll be done by 11.
There you go. That'd be efficient government there.
Right. Efficient government is not good government, by the way.
Yeah.
Yes.
I agree. I agree.
I thought there was something else that was cool. Hey, before we run out of time, what's going on in Goffstown? You're running for a planning board, buddy.
oh, am I?
Yes. That would be why it says planning board, John Hikel.
Wow, I'm sorry. Yeah, geez, I forgot all about that.
You did?
Yeah, good thing you reminded me.
What's a fiscal agent? It says John Heichel, fiscal agent. What does that mean?
It means that I'm taking care of all the contributions that come into this.
Okay.
And there aren't many when you're running for planning board, but you
Right.
have to post it on the bottom of all your
Oh,
campaign
okay.
Yeah,
signs.
that's like you
So-
have to have a fiscal agent. Usually it's yourself or your wife or somebody, your girlfriend. And
It can be anybody that
Yeah.
wants to be responsible, and if you raise money, you need to file. But on a town election, I don't think you need to file, but maybe you do.
I think it has to be over a certain amount of money. Like at a certain, I don't know about town elections, but I know as a state rep,
State 500, I think.
it's
or-
like if as long as you're spending or receiving less than $500,
yeah.
you don't have to.
So if your viewers know anybody in Goffstown,
Now, what is the deal? I guess there's
Pass
a
it
lot
along.
of static going back and forth on this. So, what's going on in the planning board, or who are you running against, or what's going on? I know there's a lot. Like I said, there's a lot of conflict. Let's put it that way.
there is conflict. I own an auto repair shop in Pennardville.
So, explain the conflict.
And the conflict is in that, there's a lot of conflict. One thing is that most of the time in some of these positions, nobody runs. But for some reason that my term is up, I've been told that I'm outspoken. I've been told that I represent the people too much, and we need we need the town, the town's interest. But I hold to the fact that the people elect me.
Right.
And I promise that I represent the people and not the bureaucrats. And boy, does that upset the bureaucrats. Because and Mark Warden, Representative Warden, is on the planning board with us. Representative Meany, for some reason, the three of us thought that would be a nice board to run for. So Mark and I, our 3-year term is up. So
now, is Mark getting as much static as you, or is he quieter?
He's getting static, but he's not. I don't think he's quite the lightning rod that I tend to be unjustifiably. But I think we should ask our paid government workers, and I think that the people elect me. Through the people's authority, they give me the authority to act on their behalf.
Right.
And I don't act on their behalf to be a yes man to the town government. Right. I act on their behalf to make sure that they are being treated properly. When you come to our board, and by the way, I was the chair of the planning board for this past year.
Right.
So when you would come to the committee and you would stand there, and a lot of people are very nervous.
Sure.
I want to add a bathroom. I want to add a bedroom. I want to subdivide my property. I want to, they come here with all these requests.
It's pathetic that they have to go to the planning board to add a bathroom.
Well, maybe not a bathroom, unless it's a separate, maybe another room. Let's say they're going to extend their house, so they're going to do something.
Okay, so they increase the footprint.
Yeah, they're going to increase their footprint. They're going to do something on their property that isn't
like
permitted.
Add chickens or something.
A non-permitted use.
Right.
So they come to the planning board, and they're
chickens.
Yeah, these people are intimidated. I mean, they're not used to standing in front of a government board. They're not used to that. They come here. They have the deed to their property. They own their property outright. We dealt with a farm that was 300 years old. 250-year-old farm, 300-acre farm, and they wanted to put 12 milking cows on it, and they were giving them a problem.
Really?
And one of the candidates that is running against me, that was in retirement for a day and then came out of retirement to oppose me. He was kind of asked to do that because he's the statist of us. I mean, he is.
So he doesn't believe this farm should have any right to have milking cows?
Well, he believes that they should have regulations put on them. And I said, you reduce the regulations on landowners, homeowners, business owners, businesses in general. But businesses are commerce, so they really can be highly regulated. Mm-hmm. But leave the people alone.
Yeah,
the people have a right to do what they want to do on their property.
Of course.
And so I'm kind of... that's me. And when you come to me at the planning board this year and our board, I made sure we were very receptive. We were polite. We were very. If you had a question, if what the town planner wanted you to do was going to be excessive, overly expensive, it's going to hold up your project, I would ask you, are you okay with this? Were you treated well? Are you okay with coming to this board? Because I want to make sure that if you want to do something with your property, then we want to help you do it.
Right.
And one of my opponents doesn't think that's the way that a planning board should be run. The other opponent that we have was on the planning board for 19 years. He's an attorney. Goffstown has a tax rate of about $4 a thousand higher than all the towns surrounding it.
Should now.
The plan isn't the plan.
With all the companies in Goffstown, your tax rate should be lower. Like where we don't have really any industrial base at all, so your tax.
But your budget is less. You spend a lot less. We're spending.
But you get all those businesses. You guys should have your tax should be lower than ours, not higher.
Well, it all depends what we spend, Gary. I mean, if it doesn't matter what you bring in, it's what you spend. It's the old saying: it doesn't matter what you make, it's what you save.
Yeah.
And our government over there for the past decades has never really been responsible and responsive to the people. And when somebody says to, let's say, John Burt, somebody said it to him, it's only so your taxes are going up. It's only an extra dinner out, a month. The answer is, but it's my dinner.
Right, exactly.
And I earned the money to go have dinner. Second of all, there's a lot of people that can't go out and have dinner, but you're still trying to suck all that money out of them. Mm-hmm. So, if we're going to keep increasing taxes, and we are the highest tax rate around, $27, more than $27 a thousand.
Right.
There's a problem in Goffstown. So both of my opponents have been on these boards when our taxes have gone out of sight, when our commercial tax base is reduced to nothing. And most people that I talk to say, if I had to do it over again, I wouldn't have come to Goffstown.
No kidding.
And that's a horrible thing to say. We should be the salesman for the town.
Yeah.
We want you to come to Goffstown. We want you to develop your business and your home and your family.
I've said this on this program, and I don't know if I said it to you, but to me, if you want your town to do well, you should have a booklet. Somebody comes to your town and says, I'd like to open up a new restaurant, whatever it is.
Yeah.
They get a booklet and it says, okay, well, you're going to have to go to the planning board. They meet. This is a person to call. This is when they meet. This is the kind of plans you're going to need. You're going to have to go to the fire department for this permit, and you're going to have to go here for this permit, and if there's anything we can do to help you, this is my phone number.
Well, that should be done at the town planner's office
right.
when they come into the town hall.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Right.
That's what every town should do if they want to encourage business, to lay it out, simple. There's no payoffs. You don't have to go, buy the fire chief dinner. Right. You don't have to do this or anything else.
Right.
This is the process.
Right.
And we really wish you luck, and we really want you to stay in Goffstown, or we really want you to be in Ware. So whatever we can do to help, please let us know.
Right.
That's how it should be laid out.
Well, that's exactly how it should be.
Yeah.
But the problem is that, town hall is run. It's run amok. I mean, it's working, and but it works. It's like, oh well, geez, I guess sorry that didn't work quite as good as we thought. We'll tax you a little bit more next year so we don't lose anything.
Right.
Right.
And it's okay, and it's just that feeling of, so I'm on there, I oppose that, I question my town, I question my government, and I allow applicants to have a pleasant experience when they come to the planning board, because, most of the time when you go there, you haven't ever gone in front. It's intimidating.
Yeah.
For the average guy or the average lady, They have a development. They've got a subdivision. 20 units. They haven't been able to sell. Nobody's building condos right now or housing
I
developments.
thought there was
right
somebody
now.
trying to build across from you, trying to build like some workforce, quote unquote.
They're
housing.
built. They're done.
They are.
They're out behind Rite Aid. Yeah, but we don't have the commercial that we were promised that we were going to have. So they built those. I don't know, 40 units, whatever they were, and then in back of Shaw's they built another 40 units. But we don't have the commercial that we were promised when it all happened. That's where Plan Bernardville got hit, got a knockout blow, because they came in. There was a $50,000 grant from HUD that was handed down by they gave it to New Hampshire Housing Finance Authority. They had made these grants for all these towns, and all these towns are doing this right now. They're receiving these grants to pay planners or engineers, some other company from some other town, and they come in and they draw your town the way that they think for sustainability, they call it.
Sure.
Well, when I saw low subsidized apartments in Shaw's Plaza, they were in there, and they said, no, it's just a concept. And you go, well, then get them out, because it's a Shaw's parking lot. Why do you have apartment buildings? Where's the cars going to park for Shaw's and Advanced Auto Parts and Planet Fitness? And Shaw's is empty. It's vacant. So, maybe the plan was the whole place is going to be vacant, and we will build apartments in there, and we'll have.
Now, who makes money off of that? Because that seems like a scam.
Well, the developer definitely does. The attorneys definitely do, most certainly, and the builders and the.
Because the thing is, if you
but
went,
the taxpayers don't. The taxpayers pay for that forever. And they'll try to sell you a good deal.
Because if you're going in there with HUD money, that means you have to offer rents at very reduced rates,
Right.
and that means you
A
have
very reduced tax
a
base.
very reduced tax base, which means you have X number of more children in your school system.
Right. More schools, more police,
And
more
less money to
fire,
deal
more
with.
everything, but less taxes coming in to pay for it. So who pays? Everybody else that's paying taxes pays
And
more.
so a few people make a boatload of money from the federal government
Yeah.
and HUD money, and
everybody else pays for
Goffstown left holding the bag.
Right. Everybody else
So
pays for it.
who is pulling the strings on that then? And is that one of the things you've been having struggling with? Is trying
That's
to fight
one of the
that?
things that I'm opposing, and I was the one that killed Planned Penardville for that whole project. So, you know, somebody lost a lot of face because, you know, they have these parties, they have these gatherings, everybody's supposed to be happy, everybody's supposed to be, you know, get along, and all of a sudden, you know, let's vote for it, you vote, it's innocuous, then all of a sudden you see, holy smoke, what's this stuff showing up in front of me? I mean, they tried it on 2nd Street over here, or South Main Street, I'm sorry. And that was caught. The town got a grant for something, and I think your former Alderman Griasso knew a lot about that. He was the one that had something to do with that. I didn't follow it much. It was Manchester, but it was the same thing. It was that Planned Penardville kind of concept thing, except South Main Street would be, you know, probably someplace that could use some help. You know,
Sure.
I get it, but. You know, when you bring people in from Kentucky and they're trying to tell you what's going to work in Penardville,
Right.
it doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
We couldn't have found somebody from Goffstown or Manchester or, you know, a local.
No, it sounds like another somebody's getting rich.
It's a
using
huge
federal
scam.
taxpayer
Federal
dollars.
money came down, just like the ERA stuff. You know, they fixed a whole bunch of stuff. You know, very few they fixed the whole Mass Road corridor, and
How many people were employed that were from Goffstown?
not many. Most of them are Massachusetts plates.
Right.
Yeah.
That's where you go.
Right.
So when you see all these big projects out there, lights should go off in your head. Oh, we're gonna get
Lights
screwed
are
again.
big time. If you know people in Goffstown, please. The election is March 11th. John Hikel running for planning board. I don't let people down. I will not let the voters down. I represent them, not the bureaucrats.
Quick one. John and I went to a seminar on expanded gambling, and Delaware was one of the first states to have a lot of expanded casinos and stuff like that.
Right.
But then all of a sudden the states around it started having casinos. This past year, this just killed me. The state of Delaware is now subsidizing the casinos to try to boost their money back up.
Oh, no. Well, that backfired.
Give them what, 80 million, 100 million?
8 million or 80 million.
Wow,
So
really?
when
To
you
subsidize the casinos because they aren't.
Oh, great.
Isn't that wonderful?
so there you go. That's
Didn't we subsidize Rockingham at one time?
Yeah, we did.
I mean, that was a you know, that's why it's the old Rockingham.
diminishing returns on that stuff. Hey,
So we're gonna put they want to put a casino there.
Representative Hikel,
Please don't.
good luck on your planning board.
Thank you.
I hope it's not as a board.
Oh, and you should plug Uptown Auto really quick.
Uptown Auto.
Uptown.
Thank you. I forgot about that.
Girl.
Right. Right. Brake lights still working. Right. I mean,
Yes,
I
thank you
take,
very much,
I
yes.
take care of a lot of people from Manchester. I fix a lot of their cars
Yep.
and Goffstown. You know, come on over. Talk garage. We can talk shop. We can talk politics. You know,
Absolutely.
for a cup of coffee. God, I'll.
Yeah, you have to buy him coffee though. That's the expensive part.
Right.
Right.
I buy him a lot of coffee.
McDonald's is $1 plus tax. Come on.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but we go
there
to
you
Dunkin'
go.
Donuts
Well, because you.
because my daughter works there.
Right.
Oh, that's
Hey, we'll see you guys next week.
right. Bye, everybody.